Hey everybody, welcome to the channel, and today we're going to be making this laser engraver. And I wanted to go over the design with you a little bit to get started. So this is the first machine that I've designed in Fusion 360. I've done individual parts before, but never have I done a complex assembly like this. Some of the things I downloaded, but all the individual components that we're going to be making here today in the video are my design. So the things that we're going to be making with our other laser is this back plate, this front plate, this Y assembly top plate, Y assembly bottom plate, and we're going to cut those all out of 6mm black acrylic. I also made a X gantry carriage out of black acrylic. It's similar to this in the design, but this is not the one that I actually used. This is one I downloaded, and also I have a slightly different laser module that I'm going to be using, but this one will work. That is, I think, a NEJE E40 630, and I'm using a NEJE 3630, which is a 405 nanometer laser, low power design for grayscale engraving. It has a very fine dot. Second thing the other thing that we're going to be making is 3D printing this case. Inside this case is you have a screen, and you have the back, or behind the screen you have the MKS DLC 32 version. I think it's 2.1, and then I'll have some links below on some other parts that I used here. We have an emergency stop switch up here, and then we have a power switch right here that I'm using. So that's pretty much the design. I bought this belt tensioner off Amazon as well. Like I said, affiliate links are below. If you decide to use them, that'd be great. Help me out and allow me to make some more content. So let's get to cutting out these parts and 3D printing. I'll get started here with these assembly of this machine. First things first, if you laser cut this with a diode laser, you might have some rough edges, and you clean them up. I use this little deburring tool, and I just run it along the side like so. I've already cleaned these all up, and it knocks that edge off. And then also you can use it inside the holes like so. And then for the smaller holes, what I found works better is this little bit here. You can see it here. And I just put it in there and run it by hand just a few times, and that'll clean up your holes. So I did that on all my parts already, so we're ready to go. So the first thing we want to do is start assembling, put the motors on the Y plates. So we'll start off with this motor. These are just standard NEMA 17 motors. And we'll get started right here. So basically, this is going to be the top plate. So this motor is going to sit over here. So we'll get one of these guys started. So you got your bolt, and this is a 20mm M3 spacer, nylon, and we want the connection to kind of face this way, because the wires are going to come up out of this hole. So we'll just get it started. Get the first screw started here. Get one on the opposite end. Don't want to tighten them very much because we want to have some space to work here. Alright, so we got them all started. We'll get them loosely, just about tight. We'll check the position of it real quick. Looks pretty straight. We'll get them tightened down. You want to get these things tight, but you don't want to go crazy with it because you can crack this acrylic. Trust me, I learned that one a hard way. All right, so that one's on there. Get the next one going. These are M3 screws, NEJE 17. This one's a little bit easier. This is the bottom Y plate. Let's tighten these guys down a little bit. All right, next step is we're gonna put the bolts for our X gantry on here. These are some M5 screws. And you need to get this in place before you assemble the two pieces together, just to make it easier to get them in here. This plate will run like so, and the X will go across it. So we'll just put these in the hole, and we'll get the nut just started on, these T-nuts started on it. You don't want them to be super tight, you just want them to be a little bit loose because we'll later slide this guy on, and then we'll tighten it all together. All right. So those two are tightened, or those are on there. Now we'll start assembling these two units together. We've got 4 of our V wheels. 4 bolts. 6 spacers, and then 2 eccentric spacers, and our nylon nuts and washers. All right. And so first things first, gonna put all these bolts in. Actually, we'll put our washers on our bolts first. All right, now I'll put these guys in the holes. All right, and 2 eccentric ones, you can see the hole is off-centered, so you can tighten your V-wheels up against your grails. They go into the larger holes. There we go. And then you'll put on the back side, standard spacer, it's the same dimension as the eccentric nut. I think they're 7 millimeters in height. I might have that wrong. Put in our wheels. And then we will have our other spacer. Right, and then we'll put our bottom plate here on. Just going to loosely put a nut on the bottom just to hold it in space. Try to get these guys lined up in the holes. Put our nut on just to keep them in place. All right. So there we have it. Loosely put together, and then I'll start tightening these guys up. And I'm just gonna do kind of like I did before and get them slightly tight, where I can still move it around a little bit, make sure everything is lined up the proper way. All right, now I'm going to just push them tightly on the ground, on the bench, while I tighten this up. Feels pretty good. So now let's go ahead and tighten these other ones down to final tightness. All right, now the next step is we'll go ahead and get these guys adjusted to fit on your Y2040 rail. So they're a little tight right now. We got a 10mm wrench to open this up a little bit. All right, those should be pretty good. All right, next step, we want to get our X-axis rail on here. So we'll kind of hold this upside down. While we're on the side here, trying to straighten out our bolts. And then put holes in the opposite side to make tightening these bolts a little easier. Okay. Let's eyeball it, make sure it looks straight. And you want to kind of bring this rail back kind of as far as you can to if you have it towards the end, the unit will flex. So that aspect is done. Next thing we want to do is go ahead and get our rail in place here. All right, feels pretty nice. So we'll slide that on there. And then the next step we're going to go to is putting on the back plate and We'll just put that one on there, and then we'll work on the front plate. So I tapped this 2040. With the M5s. I'm just putting that on loosely for right now. We'll stand this guy up. So before we put our front plate on here, we'll go ahead and get our board standoffs on here, because our circuit board's going to mount to the front of this. So we'll get these guys on here real quick. These are 5mm long M3 standoffs. And the reason that we're going to do this first is one of the holes is covered up by the extrusion here. And so I countersunk this one a little bit with that bit I showed you earlier. And so that one needs to be installed before we mount our plate here. All right, now we can put our front plate on. So these particular screws I got have a Phillips head on them, which I normally don't work with when I work on these machines, but that's all I could find in short notice. So once again, I'm making them loose, trying to tighten them at the same time, a little bit each time. All right, that one's good. Now we'll tighten up this back side here. Now later we're gonna loosen this back side back up again, install our belt. But for now we'll just loosely tighten these guys just so it doesn't wobble around too much. Okay, so the frame's about done here. All right, so next step, initially I had made this adjustable Z and I was planning on using it. When I was doing my test fitting of parts, I noticed that it flexed the acrylic plate a little bit. It was a little too heavy with everything on it. So I went and I made another little plate. And here's one of my test ones I made. Laser cut, again, out of 6mm acrylic. Couple V-wheels on there, and then mounted the plate that comes with the NEJE laser onto it. So I've already pre-fit this guy, so now when we roll it around on here, I don't get so much flex in this Z-axis because of the plates here. All right, so that's on here, and then we'll get our belt adjustment thing on here. Just gotta loosen these screws up a little bit. So the way I'm going to adjust this is I loosen this all the way out till it was almost falling off of the bracket, and then I'm going to bring it in and then tighten it down. Now on this particular machine, I'm going to try to go for sensorless homing, and we'll see if it works out. We'll start with this belt, the X-axis belt. This is GT2 5mm belt, nylon reinforced. So I'm using these little crimp ends. It's not perfect, but it works pretty good. I'll just cut the tabs off of them, because this is going to go into one of these slots here to keep it from moving. My pliers. Kind of want to crimp these in a little at a time. I don't have the proper tool for this. There we go. And now I'll just take these and cut this end off a little bit. All right, so we'll rope our belt through here. We'll get our first side in. Probably should have did this the other way. It probably would have made it a little bit easier. Now we'll see about what we need for here. So I think we're good on the length. Crimp this end like we did the other one. Since we have our adjustment all the way in, should have plenty to work with here. All right, cool. So I'm going to take this one loose, just because this one's a little bit harder to get to. We'll get it in place. Then we'll tighten this one up. Get it in place. Tighten our adjustment wheel here. If we did everything all right, we should have that works. Just checking the tightness and make sure it seems all right. It moves pretty good. Perfect. All right, now for this other one. So this belt is going to run along this axis here. And it's going to get wedged in between the frame back here and the plate, or the 2040 and the plate. And then it's going to go around this motor under the wheels. And then I have this little tensioner that we're going to install back here in the back that's going to also work as our stop. So let's get this guy through here. There we go. A little bit of persistence, we got it. All right, so I'm going to loosen up this back plate a little bit. Get this wedged inside here. All right. So it looks a little funny, but it should get the job done. All right, so then we've got our, I printed this off of something online. So I'm gonna cut a little bit of this belt off. Give us enough to work with. This little nub presses it down into the channel, so it keeps it in your groove. And then you got another little piece that goes over the top, and it has some grooves in there. And they kind of snap it together. Get our little nut in here real quick. All right. So these guys snap together pretty tight. Hopefully, super tight yet. Trying to. Sure it lines up pretty good. There you have it. So I might have to adjust this position based on where the laser is and the end stop and all that stuff, but we'll check that out in a minute. But the belt is tight now. Oh, it's just perfect. There's just a little few millimeters of clearance here. All right, guys, there you have it. All assembled frame. You got a few little adjustments to make, and then we'll be ready to get the electronics on here. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below, and check out any affiliate links I have in the below for the materials and tools I used. So I didn't want to go over how I ran these wires and whatnot for the most part. That's pretty self-explanatory to get from point A to point B. There's many videos online to show you that kind of thing. More wanted to get the rest of this going. So we're going to get our screen on here. Or sorry, not the screen, but the board. So the board is going to go with the USB port and power port up. Just got some M3 screws here. Okay, and while we got this here, I'm going to go ahead and hook up my laser module, which is this port over here. It's a TTL based laser module, and it's a NEJE, I think it's 635. It's a very small point, very low power laser module, and I just spliced in my cables into a cable provided and bypassed their board because I don't need it. So this is I have another module I might put on here to do some testing with, but for the most part this is going to be for grayscale engraving. Seems like it's in there, and then I have my X and my Y motor. So this one's my Y, which is the second one. This is my X. So it'll plug into the first slot down here. And the next one is the Y. Okay. Now we'll go ahead and get our stepper drivers on here. It's the first one is your X, and you just line up your green pins and black pins. But before I do that, I'm going to go ahead and get my little jumper on here, just to make it easier to see. Now we'll get our Y, same thing, and put my little jumper on here. Alright, so basically I'm taking the diag pin and putting that over to the signal pin of my limit switch input over here on the left. This is the X right there. The next one is the Y. And I hope this works. I think it will. We'll just have to try it out once we get everything set up and running. Alright, so next thing we're going to do is go ahead and get the screen mounted inside our case here. It's not my best printing job ever. Kind of made some mistakes on layer height and whatnot, but it's adequate. We'll kind of work its way in there. And you can see that this wider black bar, that goes to the right if it's upright. Then I have some little M4 screws, and I did not put any kind of brass inserts or anything in this. I just used the screw to tap the plastic. You don't want to over tighten those or you'll just strip the plastic out. I have to hold my mouth sideways to get this guy to start, but we'll try it. Alright, success, got it in there. I'll just move my switch back to the position that I want it to be in. It's kind of hard to do. There we go. I want the switch to be up and down. Alright, so that's that. Hand mounted, just to give it a little bit of airflow in the case. It's going to go right here. It's pretty tight. Probably would have been smart to give myself some working room on this, but did not. Just using a M3 bolt screw and a nut. Cool. I'll just cinch these down just a little bit now that I got them all in there. All right. So that's in there. Let's go ahead and get our emergency stop switch in there. I already pre-wired it up. Put JST connector on it. Perfect. Now, these ribbon cables. This is for the screen to work. We'll go ahead and get those hooked up. And you take your, I had to shorten these cables, hopefully they work. I took them apart to shorten them. So you got XP1 here, and XP2, and they correspond to these two connectors right here. Okay, XP1 is closest to the Wi-Fi module, and it will go like so. Actually, like so, which is kind of a pain because you got to twist the cable. All right, let's get XP2 in here. Let's connect the other thing. So this fan cable is going to go over here to the right. There's a 12 volt, 24 volt output right next to the beeper. Plug that guy in. And then our momentary button, our intercept button here, going to go right here, emergency stop, I should say. Okay, and then we got to get our power and ground over here. So a ground I'm going to steal from the probe input over here to the right, and then my power is going to go up here. So this black one is my ground, and this is just so that my power button light switch works. Got my power here. Now for the fun task of trying to get this case to close. So I got get this guy too. I'm going to hook this up to the top of my case. This is the Wi-Fi adapter. All right. Pretty much it. There's nothing hanging out. So yeah, it's a little tight there. Now we just need to get some screws. Go through the back of this case. Good. This case is held on with two screws, and then I put a little tab on it to line up the top left corner, and that has broken off on me. Hopefully it didn't go down in there. And there's our little SD card, our USB port, and our power. So I got a little 3-amp power supply over here, which should be enough for this guy. Let's see what happens. Already loaded my config.txt on here. I might have to tweak some of the settings, but there we go. We got power. So it just said update successful, please restart. There we go. We've got a screen. Alright everybody, thanks for watching. That is the conclusion of this video. We have our first engraving. And like the sign says, we'll see you next time on What's Next DIY.